March 12, 2026. Chinese military transport aircraft landed at Tehran's Mehrabad Air Base, carrying something that fundamentally changes the mathematics of missile defense in the Middle East. Not hypersonic missiles, not ballistic weapons. Something worse for Israeli air defenses. The HQ-9 surface-to-air missile system, specifically configured to engage targets flying below 500 meters altitude. The flight envelope that Iron Dome was never designed to handle. Let me explain why this matters more than any headline is telling you. Iron Dome was built to intercept threats flying between 1,000 meters and 10,000 meters altitude. Rockets from Gaza, artillery shells, short-range missiles following predictable arcs. The system is optimized for threats that climb, arc, and descend. It tracks them during the climb phase, calculates the intercept point, and engages during the descent. This works brilliantly against Qassam rockets and Katyusha artillery. It does not work against cruise missiles flying 200 meters above the ground. The radar cannot see them until they're too close to engage. The HQ-9 system China just delivered to Iran includes the Type 120 low-altitude surveillance radar. This radar is specifically designed to detect and track cruise missiles, drones, and aircraft flying in the 50 to 500 meter altitude band, the same altitude band where Iron Dome's detection capability degrades to the point of operational uselessness. China didn't give Iran a better missile interceptor. China gave Iran the ability to see threats that Israel's current defensive systems are blind to. Here's the technical problem. Iron Dome uses the ELM-284 multi-mission radar, an X-band system optimized for tracking small, fast-moving objects at medium altitudes. When a target flies below 500 meters, the radar's detection range drops dramatically because of ground clutter. Buildings, trees, hills, all of them reflect radar energy back to the receiver. The radar cannot distinguish between a cruise missile flying at 200 meters and the radar returned from a warehouse at the same distance. By the time the system filters out the clutter and confirms the track is a real threat, the missile is inside the engagement envelope. Too close, too fast, no time to intercept. The HQ-9's Type 120 radar operates differently. It uses lower frequency bands that reduce ground clutter interference and longer dwell times that improve target discrimination. The result is a radar that can detect low-altitude cruise missiles at ranges exceeding 150 kilometers. Iran now has early warning capability for the exact class of threats that Israeli defenses cannot engage effectively, and they can share that tracking data with every air defense system in their network. February 28, 2026. Iranian operators began integrating the HQ-9 radar network with existing Russian-supplied systems and indigenous Iranian air defense platforms. The integration created a layered defense architecture, where Chinese radars provide low-altitude early warning, Russian S-400 systems handle high-altitude threats, and Iranian-made systems fill the gaps in between. No single layer is impenetrable, but together they force Israeli aircraft and missiles to fly through overlapping engagement zones, where every altitude band is covered by a system optimized for that specific flight regime. Israel's response options narrow dramatically. Israeli Air Force strike packages previously relied on low-altitude penetration to avoid radar detection. F-16s and F-15s would fly below 300 meters, using terrain masking to approach targets without triggering Iranian early warning systems. That tactic no longer works. The HQ-9 radar sees them the moment they cross into Iranian airspace. Iranian air defenses have minutes of warning instead of seconds. Time to activate systems, time to position interceptors, time to coordinate layered responses. Cruise missiles face the same problem. Israel's Delilah cruise missile flies at altitudes between 100 and 300 meters, specifically to avoid detection by traditional air defense radars. That stealth advantage disappears when the defensive radar is designed explicitly to track targets in that altitude band. The Delilah's entire operational concept assumes it will remain undetected until the terminal attack phase. The HQ-9 radar detects it 150 kilometers out. Iran gets 8 to 10 minutes of warning before the missile reaches its target. That's enough time to reposition mobile air defense assets. Enough time to activate short-range interceptors, enough time to make the strike mission exponentially more dangerous. The cost mathematics shift in Iran's favor. An HQ-9 missile costs approximately $1.2 million. An Israeli Delilah cruise missile costs $3.5 million. Iran now has a cost-effective counter to Israel's primary standoff strike weapon. And unlike intercepting ballistic missiles, where the defender fires 2 interceptors per target to ensure kill probability, cruise missiles flying at low altitude can be engaged with shorter range, cheaper systems once the HQ-9 radar provides the initial track. Iran can use $250,000 missiles to intercept $3.5 million cruise missiles. The defender is no longer burning money faster than the attacker. China's decision to provide this system to Iran is not about Iranian air defense capability. This is about demonstrating Chinese military technology in a real operational environment against Western systems. Every engagement where HQ-9 radars successfully detect Israeli aircraft or missiles generates performance data that China can market to every country concerned about Western air superiority. Pakistan, Indonesia, Thailand, Saudi Arabia, Egypt. All of them operate in regions where American or Israeli air capabilities represent strategic threats. China is showing them that affordable Chinese radar systems can neutralize expensive Western stealth tactics. The strategic message China is sending extends beyond the Middle East. Taiwan is watching this carefully. Taiwan's air defense network relies heavily on American radar systems optimized for high-altitude threats. If Chinese HQ-9 radars can track low-altitude Israeli cruise missiles in Iran, they can track American cruise missiles approaching Taiwan. The operational lessons. Iran learns defending against Israeli strikes translate directly to how China would defend against American strikes in a Pacific conflict. The HQ-9 delivery also exposes a critical vulnerability in Western strike doctrine. For 30 years, American and Israeli air forces have relied on low-altitude penetration as the primary tactic for defeating integrated air defense systems. Fly low, use terrain masking, arrive undetected, strike before defenses can react. That doctrine assumed adversary radars could not effectively track low-altitude threats through ground clutter. China just disproved that assumption with a radar system they're selling for $150 million per battery. The entire Western investment in low-altitude strike tactics is becoming obsolete faster than defense establishments are willing to acknowledge publicly. Israeli military planners are now facing threat scenarios they have no existing counter for. If Iran positions HQ-9 radar units along its western border, they can track Israeli aircraft operating inside Iraqi airspace. Israel loses the ability to use Iraq as an approach corridor for strikes against Iranian nuclear facilities. If Iran shares HQ-9 tracking data with Hezbollah in Lebanon, Israeli aircraft operating over northern Israel become visible to hostile forces who previously had no effective surveillance capability in that region. The battlespace transparency that Israel has enjoyed for decades is evaporating. The deeper problem is that no quick technological fix exists. You cannot upgrade Iron Dome to detect low-altitude cruise missiles by installing new software. The radar frequency and aperture size are wrong for that mission. You would need entirely new radar systems, which means years of development, billions in procurement costs, and complete restructuring of defensive deployments. Israel does not have years. Iran has HQ-9 radars operational right now. American officials will claim that upgraded Patriot systems or future integrated air defense networks will solve this problem. That's technically true and strategically irrelevant. Those systems don't exist in operational quantities yet. The timeline for deploying them across enough locations to provide comprehensive coverage is measured in years, not months. Iran's low-altitude surveillance capability is active today. Israeli strike planners have to account for it in every mission they plan starting immediately. The psychological impact on Israeli operational planning is harder to quantify, but equally significant. For decades, Israeli military doctrine has assumed technological superiority over regional adversaries. Better aircraft, better missiles, better sensors, better training. That superiority created operational freedom. Israeli forces could strike when and where they chose because adversaries lacked the capability to detect and respond effectively. The HQ-9 system doesn't eliminate Israeli technological advantages, but it narrows them substantially. Israeli planners now face an adversary with surveillance capabilities that force them to fly higher, which makes them more visible to other systems, or accept dramatically higher risk when flying low. The regional proliferation potential creates longer-term strategic problems. If the HQ-9 proves effective in Iranian service, Syria will want it. Hezbollah will request access to the radar data. Iraqi militias will pressure Iran to extend coverage into Iraqi territory. Within 18 months, Israel could be facing a continuous low-altitude surveillance network extending from the Mediterranean to the Persian Gulf, all linked through Iranian command and control infrastructure, all feeding data to air defense systems positioned to exploit the gaps in Israeli strike capabilities. Western intelligence services knew China was negotiating this sale for months. The delivery was not a surprise. What surprised analysts was the speed of operational integration. Chinese technicians had the HQ-9 radars operational within 72 hours of delivery. Iranian operators were conducting live tracking exercises within a week. That integration speed indicates the training and preparation happened long before the physical delivery. China and Iran planned this deployment carefully, positioned it to achieve maximum operational impact immediately, and executed it faster than Western intelligence agencies expected. The timing also deserves attention. China delivered the HQ-9 system while Iran is actively engaged in escalating tensions with Israel and American forces in the region. This is not defensive posturing during peacetime. This is capability injection during active conflict. China made a deliberate choice to provide Iran with advanced military technology that will be used operationally against Israeli and potentially American assets in the immediate term. That represents a significant escalation in Chinese willingness to directly support Iranian military operations against Western-aligned forces. Markets have not priced in what just happened. Defense contractors whose revenue depends on selling Western air defense systems are about to face procurement decisions where customers ask why they should buy American radar systems that cost 3 times more than Chinese systems, while providing less capability against the threats they actually face. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, all of them built business models around technological superiority that commanded premium pricing. China is undercutting that model with systems that work well enough at a third of the cost. Iron Dome cannot see low-altitude threats anymore, not because the system degraded, because the threat environment evolved beyond what Iron Dome was designed to handle, and adversaries now possess the radar technology to exploit that limitation systematically. Israeli aircraft that previously flew low to avoid detection now fly low into surveillance networks specifically designed to track them. Cruise missiles that previously approached targets undetected now trigger alerts 150 kilometers out. China delivered one radar system. That system invalidated 15 years of Israeli strike doctrine, exposed vulnerabilities in American air defense architecture, and demonstrated Chinese military technology can counter Western tactics effectively at a fraction of the cost. And every country watching is taking notes on what just became possible. The HQ-9 is operational in Iran. The radars are tracking. And every low-altitude flight over the region is now visible to an adversary that previously could not see it coming.